Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. A lot has been said about this game, and I have a lot to say about it here as I am finally complete with the full game with about a 97% item completion in addition to a 94% scan completion and 21 hours throughout Vero. So I wanted to give you guys my thoughts and impressions and score for the game overall as a little bit of a review after playing. And I find this to be interesting because there's been a lot said, but this isn't going to be based off of what other people say or other reviews. This is strictly my own personal opinion on my gameplay, basing Metroid Prime 4, not basing it off of what they think it should be, Metroid Prime 1 or 2 or 3 or other stuff, simply how I felt playing Metroid Prime 4. And I have to say this is probably the most enjoyable time that I've ever had playing a Metroid Prime game. Now, I think I'm a fan of the other games. I played them and I beat them, and I have liked Metroid Prime over the years. I will admit that I'm more of a 2D Metroid fan than I am a 3D Metroid fan. I love Super Metroid. I love Metroid Dread, which is currently my favorite Metroid game of all time. But it's one of those things to where I kind of looked at what was happening outside and said, okay, well, I want to go over what I think about this game strictly. And pretty much, to me at least, this is the best playing Metroid game that I have ever played. Metroid Prime game, I should say. Best playing Metroid Prime game. But if you look at the overall totality of the game and what it offers, it's actually pretty incredible with a few downfalls here and there, which we will go over with the final score and with everything. So let's just go ahead and start off with the story or basic premise. I'm not going to do any spoilers in this review, so if you're expecting me to go in depth into everything, that's not going to happen. There's plenty of videos where you can go find stuff like that. But essentially, you are there at this planet. You land on this planet to help the Galactic Federation fight off a space pirate invasion. They're trying to get this artifact. Sylux is there as well. And Samus, you have to go there to try to defend it. And there is an issue. Sylux accidentally or purposefully blasts the artifact there, this weird, strange artifact, and it teleports you and a number of Galactic Federation troopers to this strange, obscure planet called Vuros that has this advanced psychic race of people named the Lemorn, and you have to find 5 different teleporter keys to get you and the other Galactic Federation soldiers off of the planet. But there is resistance in your way from Sylux to Grievers, these crazy, like, feral race of things that are trying to attack you as well. You also have these side bots that are attacking you. You have a bunch of crazy bosses that you have to fight in classic Metroid fashion, and there's just a lot of different things. You have a bike called the Viola that you need to speed across a pretty barren desert to collect green energy crystals, and also little things that you can do, which we will get into that because there was a lot said about that overall. But yeah, that's essentially pretty much the story setup for this game. So I want to go over each different thing here. We're going to have multiple categories from presentation, sound design, graphics, control options, and gameplay, replayability, story, all that good stuff. So let's just start off with the presentation of the game. This is by far the best presentation in a Metroid Prime game, from the UI to the fonts to the design of it to the title screens to the control screens to everything in the game. The presentation of it is absolutely immaculate. This is by far the best presentation for a Metroid Prime game that I've seen, and I don't even think it is close. Everything is nicely organized, everything looks sharp, it looks all in line with what the Metroid Prime series or what you would expect. I think that it all has a little bit of a hue of the purple and silvers and the bold colors that make up the main, I would say, aspects of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. So I really do love the presentation. I think it's put together very well, and they've done a lot of different things when it comes to how it looks with the UI design to just make it feel sleek, and it's all snappy and fast, from the heads-up UI display with Samus to everything else. So I really do think I got to give a tip of the cap to the design team. Incredible presentation, incredible UI design and layout, great heads-up display, and something for me at least, as I was playing the game, it's in first person. I'm not good with first person games. Sometimes I get nauseous, but they were able to present it with the UI and the fonts and everything to where it felt really smooth. I think also the 120 FPS, which we'll talk about in just a bit, also helped me out from my nauseousness of that, and the game moves slowly for the most part in first person, so that was all great. But the presentation, gotta be a 10 out of 10 when it comes down to it. Very good on that front. Now let's talk about the sound design, because I was playing this game in either 3D audio sound design through my controller with the TV. I tested that out. I tested out the 5.1 surround sound on my Vizio Elevate surround system. Also tested it out when I was playing hooked up to my computer in order to capture footage from my Nintendo Switch 2 and just the earbuds there. And the sound in this game is incredible. You can hear enemies all around you, and it's just crazy how well it works when it comes to the 3D audio and the sound design. Nintendo's had good sound design in a lot of games before, but I think that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, considering the type of game that it is, because you're going to be facing certain ways at certain times, I think the sound design really kind of comes through here. Now, is it perfect? Probably not. I'm not the biggest sound design guy out there, and yes, there's no 7.1 or maybe the highest quality, but overall, for what Nintendo's done before previously in their games, and from what I experienced here, having blasts and different types of sound effects coming from all over the place overall, and the quality of the sound, I had to once again be blown away. Just like the presentation UI, 10 out of 10 overall when it comes to the sound design. So I was very impressed. I love the different sounds of each gun and everything, between the electricity or between the ice and the fire. All of those have distinct sounds, and it's even more interesting when we get to like the control aspect of it. But the HD Rumble 2, that HD Rumble 2 is so advanced in there, it actually makes separate sounds for different types of weapons that's not affiliated with the game. The HD Rumble will make a unique sound, so that was kind of interesting to hear that and see some of the stuff along with that. I was kind of blown away with the sound of the controller when you blast certain weapons and all that, so that was definitely pretty cool. Now, next up, I gotta talk about the graphics in the game, because once again, the graphics in the game are incredible overall. Like when you are blasting people up with your arm cannon, when you're hitting them with missiles, when you're just going about the environments between the flare pool, Fury Green, and other different places out there, it just looks spectacular and easily one of Nintendo's best looking games. Now, we do have the much talked about desert. Yeah, that could have absolutely been designed better when it comes to like more valleys and canyons and grooves and more interesting ways to go about that. So that's definitely a negative on the graphics overall when it comes to the desert area. Now, that desert area isn't bad per se. It's not like it's in low resolution or blurry or anything, so it's not all bad. And there are some designs out there, but it is kind of barren overall. So it does take the graphic presentation down just a little bit. But if you look at overall with the areas that you actually go to and the different places that you see, it just looks incredible. It is one of Nintendo's best looking games graphically, if not their best graphics when it comes to just overall. And I do think that that's kind of reflected in some of the different stuff that we've seen from the videos and comparisons. And you also have to look at it like this, because the graphics presentation runs 4K 60 FPS, so if you're playing on a big TV, it looks sharp and nice. Or you can play it at 1080p 120 FPS. It also runs at 120 FPS 720p portable, or 1080p 60 frames per second portable as well. So no matter how you're playing or where you're playing on the TV or on portable, it's going to look sharp and good and run good. So from a graphical perspective, this is by far one of the best that Nintendo's done. And once again, you have to give it up when it comes to the graphics in this game. It looks spectacular. Now, the biggest thing with Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which is what everybody wants to know about, what everybody cares about, at least to me, what's the biggest slice of what makes a game good or not, it's going to be the gameplay. And Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, to me, this is where it actually takes it to the next level a bit. There is some really good in this game, some super high highs, and some lows when it comes to that. So let's start off with the highs. For me, at least, the gameplay, the combat, best in the series. It's never felt better to lock on, to be able to have different types of gyro or different types of effects. You can go from playing the game in mouse mode to playing dual analog or to playing gyro. It's all kind of built in. What I tried out the most though was the gyro controls along with the dual analog. So for the most part, I'm playing dual analog. I can lock on and blast enemies, but then I can hold down the ZL button and then I can use the gyro for precision shots as well. To me, that works so well, but there's so many different options in the game. If you want to play with the pointer controls, you can do that, and you can seamlessly transition to each one of them, whether you're using split Joy-Con or whether you're using the Pro controller. Obviously, you can't do mouse controls with a Pro controller, but if you're using the split Joy-Cons, you can essentially go from each one of them in fusion type of modes. So this, to me, when it comes to the gameplay, it blows away the other Metroid Prime games out there with the sheer amount of options and how it's done. In like other Metroid games, for example, you can't necessarily play every single type of way that you want to play with the previous ones, like on the Wii or the GameCube or something. So in this Metroid Prime game, there are so many control options, there's so many ways to play. It just makes it the smoothest Metroid game to play, along with that 120 FPS, which is great if you're using mouse mode or if you're using the gyro controls. It just feels silky, and it doesn't really budge from that at all. So gameplay wise, I had a blast controlling Samus, moving about the environments, doing all of her different types of, I would say, special abilities that she has overall, which is so good in the game. It makes the gameplay varied. A lot of Samus's power-ups and things are back from, of course, you've got the regular missiles, you've got the super missiles, you've got the charge beam, you've got the fire shot, you've got a thunder shot, you've got an ice shot, you've got all these different cool abilities and stuff. I don't want to go into too many of the other abilities that she has, because once again, spoilers, but expect the spider ball, expect a lot of different stuff, but psychic this time when it comes down to it. And speaking of psychic, Samus has this new psychic ability that was imbued upon her from the advanced Lemorne race that are trying to save themselves when it comes down to that. Once again, no spoilers with how the story works out. So you have now psychic abilities to where you can like grab these different motes to solve puzzles, and you have the psychic scan now, and you can do psychic telepathy to move some things or solve some type of puzzles. So I think it's pretty cool. I like that about the gameplay overall, and of course all of the abilities, kind of getting certain abilities, going back to certain areas to collect power-ups and expansions, also using those abilities to solve puzzles, get power-ups and new abilities. So it's pretty much the classic Metroid stuff that you would expect, just kind of done in a little bit of a different structure and way. So gameplay overall was obviously the high point for me in this game. Graphics and gameplay were just spectacular. Like I said, being able to blast different enemies in different types of ways and kind of go throughout these environments, it was so fun. It just felt good. The visceral feel of blasting enemies was great. And we have to talk about, for me at least, the high point also with the gameplay was the bosses. Once again, no spoilers with this one, but the bosses in this game were fantastic. I had a great time fighting a lot of the bosses in this game, and I think that they had pretty unique or interesting ways to take them down and to use your different abilities in the game. For me, some of the encounters with Silux were just, oh my gosh, so much fun overall. So yes, the boss battles, fantastic, loved it about it. But what was not so good about the gameplay? Well, I do think that the enemy variety could have been better. Absolutely could have been better. There are the grievers and different types of grievers. There are the Cybots that you fight in different types of Cybots, and there are a couple other things as well. But I do think that there could have been just a bit more overall, and that would have been good for it. Now, it might not fit in with the story as much because there's only a certain amount of people that are here on this planet, considering that a lot of the race is gone. But I understand in terms of how that goes. But definitely there could have been a bit more enemy variety there. And of course, the desert area, there could have been a bit better, I would say, design in the desert area. I don't think it's as bad as maybe some people might suggest, because it's essentially just a hub area. You do have to spend quite a bit of time gameplay-wise at some point, because you have to go around smashing these green crystals to collect energy, to kind of deposit back in this tree, to power the tree. But the amount that you need is a lot. So if you're not constantly collecting that, you could have to spend a ton more time towards the end of the game sitting there and just smashing through and collecting the green energy, which, like I said, for some people is not going to be great of an experience overall. Whereas for me, I was collecting a ton of it just going through anyway, just getting used to the controls and just seeing about the bike, because I like motorcycles. So Samus and the Viola motorcycle is cool to me. So I was just going through and collecting a lot anyway in there. So for me, it wasn't that big of a deal. But I get it overall with that. And yes, you do need a lot of that. And I can see that as a little bit of a net negative overall for the gameplay. It should have been designed better with the green crystals and how you do it, and giving you a little bit more of an indicator in terms of how much you need and certain stuff. So yeah, that just wasn't handled the best it could have handled, and that was a net negative for the gameplay overall. But like I said, the highs are really high and some of the lows can be low for some. But yeah, a bit more design in there would have been good in terms of stuff to do with different maybe outposts to go to, or maybe even like mini labyrinths. I mean, they do have some shrines that you can go through and all that. Maybe if there was a bit more overall, that would have been good for the game too. I think they could have designed a bit more. I do also want to add in a little addendum here with the whole amiibo controversy situation. I had the amiibo from the beginning, so I was able to unlock the music and have it and have no issue. There's some talk about whether you can unlock it after you beat the game and getting a certain amount or not. I'm not exactly sure what happens there, but I think we can all agree that it would have just been nice for it to be in there from the beginning, and maybe the amiibo actually unlocks multiple more tracks, whereas from the default you can just have it there. So I'm not in love with the idea that there's amiibo unlocks for like music or certain things like that, or like modes locked behind it. But I do want to let you guys know that I did have it from the beginning overall, and I didn't see it one way or another. I just had it there. But yeah, it definitely would be nice if it was there from the beginning. So hopefully we don't get stuff like that in the future. But yeah, when it comes to the gameplay, still a lot of really good, definitely some bad in there as well. For me, 9 out of 10 when it comes to gameplay. Next up, let's talk about replayability. This is where something I think they could have absolutely done better, and probably my biggest negative with the game overall is that once you complete everything, yes, there's a hard mode that unlocks, and there's galleries, and you have to collect certain things, but there should have been a bit more. Something like a boss rush mode, something like a dread mode would have been nice as well included, if they could have had a little bit more. Also, these scans and item stuff, like New Game Plus, I get it would break the game if you had real New Game Plus, but your scans don't carry over. There's a number of things that kind of break the replayability in this game. Once again, hard mode is great, and I think it's really cool, and I've already restarted the hard mode, so this is the first time in the history of me playing Metroid Prime that I've ever went back right after I beat the game to start up a new file, because I'm excited to play it again to see if I can get the 100% scan. But then once again, you kind of have the daunting task of going through it again and doing all of that stuff, especially with the whole green energy situation overall. So I'm like secretly hoping for a patch in the next like week or so to where it kind of patches that, so I don't have to necessarily do that again. But yeah, for me, the replayability could have been better handled with the hard mode. Could have been better handled like with certain modes that you get or what happens. So replayability, it's okay with hard mode, but I feel that it definitely could have been better as well. So replayability, had to give it a 6 out of 10 for that. Not the strongest suit overall. While I did briefly touch upon the story, and I'm not going to do a lot of that here, the story to me was solid. I felt that the scanning to find certain ways of what happened to the Lemorn people and what happened with everything, and why Salix is kind of who he is and kind of what happened there. I don't want to go into everything here, but the ending, I definitely had to look and kind of see and understand exactly what happened overall. I like the Lemorn race of people. I like Silas as a enemy and all of that. I like the different types of Galactic Federation troopers, which we can talk about that, right? Kind of ties into story. There was a lot of controversy about them talking or something, but for me, I didn't really have an issue too much with them. I thought that they actually added a bit when it comes to making Samus feel human, or making Samus feel real overall, and the fact that she is a famous bounty hunter that has helped the Galactic Federation numerous times over. I thought it was pretty cool. You know, you have people complaining about certain things with Miles McKenzie and the talking and stuff, but I actually grew to like the cast and crew, and I think that they do some pretty cool stuff throughout the game. So that's about all I'll say on that, for the fear of a spoiler overall. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought that it could have been better in some areas. Maybe there could have been a bit more intertwining in terms of how the Lemorn people, when you do scans, and how that is set up, and some of the cutscenes with that. But overall, I thought the story was a good, solid 8 out of 10. And I felt the most engaged that I've ever felt with a Metroid Prime story. And while we can talk about the whole amiibo, desert, music, or not controversy with ambient styles or whatever, I think that the music in the game overall, between the different spots, especially boss themes, and it's just random music in the game, is actually incredible. Volt Forge is a dope track, and you guys will be hearing some of the music in the background during this review. But yeah, I felt that the music in the game was awesome, which I add that into the audio score as well. So overall, when you tally up everything, I have a bunch of different scores here that I've given to various different parts. I got a 9 out of 10 for the score. I think the game is very good. It's got some nice highs, it's got some lows, but overall it was the most fun, and that's the most important thing to me. Fun, along with everything else, presentation, graphics, sound, everything like that. To me, it was the most fun that I've had. Negatives, when it comes down to it, enemy variety is an issue overall. Green crystals and the desert area docked it down a point or so for that. But outside of that, I think that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is a blast and a very fun game to play, and I'm going to be playing it again on the hard mode. So I'm probably going to put like 30, 40 hours into this game when it's all said and done, going through and collecting everything. So that is my review and my discussion on Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Let me know what you guys think about the game in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.